Hi, Stephanie and Linda Behrens here. And my mom and I were talking about the influence that these lenses have on our relationship and how they help us manage some potentially rough areas. And we wanted to go over a little bit about how cognitive dynamics helps us in our relationship.
Yeah, it's a great idea, Stephanie. It's been actually almost more powerful than the other more obvious differences that we have.
So, as you probably know by now, there are many layers to who we are at our core. And what we do is work with people to look at our essential motivator patterns, which is why we do what we do, our interaction style, communicating and interacting with other people, and cognitive dynamics. And that's what we wanted to talk a little bit about today.
So for my part, I used to think essential motivators were really like, oh, wow, that would be our biggest difference. And it is in many ways. It turns out that interaction style is also one, but cognitive dynamics has really, really improved how well we can work together, because we're not just mother and daughter anymore, we're business partners. So let's just take a look then for what can the 4-letter type code tell you? And is it just a bunch of alphabet soup, or does it really stand for something more than separate letters? The 4-letter type code was created as a way to get at what Carl Jung had identified as 8 psychological types, 8 patterns where one of 8 processes or functions that he called them were predominating. So now many of you know a lot about this type code, but some of you don't. So we want to give you just a little tiny background so you know what we're talking about. So here are these 4 letters, and what we found is that the more we looked at the separate letters or the dichotomies, the more we were making mistakes in working with people, because those by themselves are a little bit too broad brush of a stroke. And they can highlight some differences, but we've gotten to the point where this is kind of how we see it. The middle 2 letters, the heart of the type code, and that's what Jung was talking about. And we just got to the point where we really didn't want to look at those separately, because we realized that it really stands for way more than that. And there are really 16 personality types with these 8, the bottom row, 8 cognitive processes or functions that play out in a certain pattern. And the pattern kind of looks like this. This is mine. So the name, we call it designer theorizer, INTP. So what's at the head is the leading role, and each of these processes plays a role in our personality. And this was identified by John Beebe. We've learned a lot in the last 10, 15 years about what these things mean. And we use different terms than just the letters themselves, so we can understand, what do they mean? What does each one mean? And so we have 4 processes are accessible to us. We're more than that letter that's in the type code. We have these 4 processes that we tend to pay more attention to, tend to use more, if you will, and they play certain roles in our personality. And then there are what are called shadow processes. The other 4 are also available to us, and they come to our aid when we need them. But really, they're often there when we get in trouble and have to call on them. And in other times, they play more a shadowy role in our personality. They come through when we're under stress. And so I think Stephanie and I have experienced that a fair amount and seen kind of the negative side of some of these. So what does this look like?
So very often when we feel tension getting high and we're going head to head on something, if we take a step back, we can look at, it's most often our supporting role, which is extroverted intuiting on my mom's side and introverted intuiting on my side. And she will get into ideas and connections, possibilities. And I'm stuck in introverted intuiting, wanting to clearly see the future. And so all of her possibilities overwhelm what I want to see the solution at. And so we'll often take a time out, step back, and realize that we're going head to head with our supporting roles.
Yeah, and what I've learned is that I just learned to catch myself actually a little bit and realize that you came into this with a vision, whatever it is we're discussing, even the production of this video, and you have a vision, and I really trust that vision, and so I need to like make space for that. And so a lot of times I try to catch it as soon as I can to stop
So
it. I don't always get it.
Stepping back then, Mom. You're doing the stepping back and I'm still continuing on.
Yes. Well, but sometimes you catch it as well. So the first thing we started doing was just noticing that and talking about it. Another thing we did is we stopped working together in person so much, and we do better on the phone, even though we only live about 15, 20 minutes away from each other.
Yeah.
So we work on the phone a lot. We work with chat.
Video,
yeah, like this. And that's how we actually have become way more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes our leading roles go head to head too.
Yeah, that's true. Because this happened in one of our courses once, where I've got a principal using introverted thinking. I've analyzed the situation and I see this opportunity to do something, and maybe I don't do it very gracefully, and Stephanie's sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, and sending me a chat, and then we have to go back and in our courses we're quite a community with a lot of respect, so I'm able to say, whoops, I goofed up and overused my preferred process, and I apologize, and I keep working on making it better. So as it turned out, that whole my leading role, connecting with her leading role, is really what I aspire to do, because you see that one for me, extroverted feeling is or connecting is really in what I aspire to do and always have all my life. So, it turns out that, the mother is now the daughter, or the teacher is now the learner.
Well,
as
only
we coach
in that area. That area. Because if you look at, your leading role.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Inspirational role.
Yeah. And on a positive side, I think we really look to each other for ways to learn and get fascinated with what the other person can do.
Yeah.
And can do with such ease and polish and grace. Yeah. What if our relief role gets in the way?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
We've got lots of areas to go head to head with.
How long are we going to take for this?
I know, right?
So yeah, what I found, especially as I've gotten older, which we don't know if that has to do with age, but a little bit it has to do with my relief role, which I kind of overdo. It's a place I like to play. So I'll give the history and give the history and give the history, all of the things that are connected in the past. And that doesn't really work too well. I'm not sure what the response is. I just know I don't get a good response.
That's when I start doing something else while you're talking.
Oh.
I engage extroverted sensing. So I'll start painting or drawing or creating graphics while you're talking, which is probably why we work well online together, because I can do those things while you talk to me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Now, sometimes what I remember is that sometimes you will tell me something that comes from your vision, a sense of what's going to be the future, the foreseeing of introverted intuiting. And I know to trust that, because you do it much better than I do. I don't trust it at all. For me, you see, it's way down there in the critical parent role. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think when I bring up things from the past, like you'll have an idea and I'll report on, oh, here's how this worked, here it's in the literature. Mm-hmm. It sort of discredits your vision. And I'm really not intending to do that. I'm trying to kind of say, I don't know. Actually, what I'm intending to do is to say that it's, you're really powerful in the things that you're foreseeing. And then what I really love is when the things that you're foreseeing are out ahead of what comes up in the literature.
See, now I wish we were in person working together and I could hug you. we just
Oh,
turned this lesson into therapy between mom and daughter.
well, yes, it all works out for growth and development, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if we can even say any more about the bottom ones, the shadowy ones.
We keep those hidden.
We keep those hidden. I
To
mean,
see the shadow.
we haven't really delved into ways that those the I suppose if one of us gets into those, then
Yeah.
we might drag the other down there if we're all the ones. Like I'm thinking about the ways I get stuck on something that's of value
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
push on that, and then you might be stubborn about it,
Yeah.
and you may have some sequence that you have in mind from
Mm-hmm.
extroverted thinking,
Yeah.
and then what I've come up with doesn't match. I suppose we could tell them about the half an hour we spent before the video when I shared the PowerPoint with you.
Yes. But we don't need to go into that.
No, we don't. We don't. We don't.
All right.
All right. So this is very much a tool that we teach people to use in the training, and to really map out your relationship. And even if the other person doesn't know about it, you can use it yourself to think about it. Even if you can guess about the other person's preferences and their pattern and see if you're triggering each other in some way.
Absolutely.
And it's really, really helpful if you can laugh about them and to
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, there we go again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
So,
the awareness. Oh, sorry. Just the awareness alone diffuses the situation.
yeah, it does. It
It
does.
really does. I know that you and I have been in some intense conversations and we catch ourselves, realize what we're doing, and it's like we let the air out of the balloon and we're like, okay, we can get back to where we were going.
Yeah. Yeah. And and it took us a while with the NENI stuff, the extroverted intuiting, the seeing patterns and connections from outside the context and bringing in all this extraneous stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, what helped with that, I think, the most was your willingness to say that it was, that you got, it was totally overwhelming and confusing. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our therapy session and have learned a little bit about all the kinds of things that you can come to understand by really understanding cognitive dynamics in depth.
And if you're interested in learning more for yourself, you can purchase both the Introduction to Personality Type Code and the Cognitive Dynamics Basics handout at innerstrength.org, the books and resources section. And we also invite you to explore the Cognitive Dynamics certification. The schedule and additional information is available at our website at innerstrength.org.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Stephanie, for uh, participating with me in this fun conversation.
Thanks, Mom. Thank you, guys.